single time a governor should be impeached for gross misconduct, it is now. If the Senate was serious about their job, this is the time they should impeach a governor, not for corruption, not for stealing, but for gross misconduct on the face of it. There is no reason why the governor of Nairobi should continue being in office when his officers are telling us that they did what is said to have been done. The minister, the CEC for Finance, was on TV yesterday saying they did this knowingly. Why should the governor be still in the office, Mr. Speaker?
Well, we've heard of some arrests of some people, drivers allegedly of those trucks who were asked to write a statement.
Small fish.
Small fish. Exactly. We wait to see how far up this goes. If at all, hopefully it won't be one of those episodic events that we have and we're all pretty shocked and then we quickly move on. Although that is exactly what I want us to do now, to move on to our last discussion of the night, which is what's happening in the world of politics. So it's well after Addis and we're now settled back at home. And there is talk again of further consultations and public participations, exercises rather, that are set to take place because we are expecting a big announcement. I'd like us to first maybe listen to Raila Odinga and talking about these consultations that he is engaging in before what is supposed to be some big announcement. Yes.
Before I make any comprehensive statement, I was going to consult widely. I'm not just going to be confined to Nyanza or this part of Nyanza. I will be talking to leadership from Kisii, from Western, from the coast, from the Rift Valley, from the Eastern, from Northeastern, from Central, all over the country.
He also said he would be speaking extensively with the youth of this country. Jay, do we know what this announcement is? I mean, yeah, well, that's a moot question. But allow me to ask it anyway. What's cooking? What's happening?
Yvonne, I think the ship has sailed. And Raila Odinga, in his public consultations, is simply working backwards to fit into the plan. Because the events of State House Mombasa were very telling. If you keenly read the body language, if you keenly saw the pictures of who was attending, it clearly gave it out that a decision had already been made, and probably it's what people would say it's champagne on ice, because literally, it's always interesting that Raila Odinga in the last couple of months never walked around with Wakili Paul Mwangi. All of a sudden, Paul Mwangi shows up. What
does he signify? Or when we see him, Wakili, what do we know him for?
Wakili.
He drafts stuff for Raila. He's a principal legal advisor to Raila Odinga. Interestingly, in my culture, we say that when you are going to do certain things, you need certain people to accompany you. And the presence of Dr. Oburu Oginga there, for me, tells a lot. That chances are there's a deal that was being worked out, and Raila needed a few people that he trusted, his legal guy, and his brother. The consultations that are ongoing across the country, as it were, are also very telling, because he did one in Kisumu, he's done in Siaya, he was in Homa Bay and Migori today. And when you speak to people who've attended those meetings, the direction is one. They say they need some assurances from the government. So if there are negotiations and consultations going, what nature of assurances are these that they need? So for me, where I sit, everything has been set. It's just waiting for an opportune time to sign a cooperation deal or a government of national unity or whatever they will call it, but Raila Odinga and William Ruto are going forward tied at the hip.
And they are saying the same things.
Yes.
While Raila is talking about wide consultations across the country, his brother, President Ruto, is saying the same thing.
There will be extensive consultations across the political divide as we work towards the unity of our country and the progress of Kenya. As an administration that is now broad-based, there is every reason for us to accelerate the momentum for the delivery of the things that will transform our nation.
Momentum. Sam.
Yeah, so this momentum has been building, or rather officially building, since it was announced on the night of the dinner at Addis, after the AUC election laws. Which date was that? 16th
of February.
16th of February.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was quite telling, because after that dinner, we didn't see Raila Odinga in the country. I think he went on holiday in Dubai. He was there with a couple of leaders, including Junet Mohammed, and I think Hassan Joho, the Cabinet Secretary for Mining Affairs. Then after that, he returns to the country, I believe on Sunday, and then you see him moving straight to Mombasa to meet the president. And you must have seen, Senator Dan Mans was describing that greeting between the president and Raila Odinga as loud and clear. He was saying that it is actually a firmer handshake than what you saw with the Uhuru Kenyatta, because you were saying that the Uhuru Kenyatta handshake was soft. This one, loud and clear. And clearly you can see, even on how happy the president is to see Raila Odinga. But also there are key figures that you will see in such kind of situations. Beyond what you are describing, I think I remember on March 9th, 2018, when Raila Odinga appeared with President Uhuru Kenyatta that time at Harambee House.
Yes.
Junet Mohammed.
He was present.
Was somewhere. You could see him in the cutaways.
Yeah.
This time round, he was in the room. And whenever you see him getting so close to certain negotiations and very close to state events, you should know that something is cooking. Now, what I'm wondering is...
Sorry, just to interject.
Yeah.
Was he not in the room when there was the handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta March 9th?
Yes.
Yeah,
he said at Harambee House.
The only one in the room. I mean, you know, other than, of course, the
principal.
The handshake.
So the interesting thing is, President William Ruto criticized the handshake of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga for a very, very long time, including that speech at Chatham House. And we'll be looking for that clip, where he describes it as a mongrel, because in Kenya, the government is in the opposition and the opposition is running government. Let's listen to what he said that time.
This is the reason why some of us were said to be against the handshake, you know. The handshake took away the oversight role of the opposition. In Kenya today, we do not have an opposition. There is a mongrel of an organization. Nobody knows what the hell it is. People don't know whether we have the opposition in government or the government in the opposition.
So, what do we have now? Because he said he didn't know what it was. Nobody knew what it was.
It's broader now.
It's broader.
Yeah. It's a broader mongrel, if there's something.
So, I mean, there are questions that have to be asked this particular time, because he complained that they went into the election of 2017. A president was elected, and the person who didn't win went ahead to form the minority, or in this case, the opposition. This time round, in 2022, there was another election. A president was elected and went ahead to form a government. The minority side was to play the role of minority in parliament, but, well, in Kenyan politics, you become the opposition. So when you have this broad-based arrangement, and we don't know what Raila Odinga is going to communicate, obviously there is a lot of suspicion, but if he goes ahead, speculation, not suspicion, if he goes ahead and announces that he's now going to formalize the working arrangement on the broad-based sort of conversation, because, I mean, nothing much will happen without that, because that's what they are saying, what will that become? And what is the role? What is the oversight role of the party that doesn't win election?
And I was wondering, what does that mean for our parliament right now? Okay, of course, broad-based ilianza last year when we had cabinet secretaries being appointed from ODM. Of course, after Raila announced his AU bid and the support that President William Ruto gave him when they had the press conference in Mombasa, one of the things that they both said was this, that Raila insists that after he had announced his bid for AUC, that's when President William Ruto decided to support him. And President Ruto also said the same thing, that he had nothing to do with Raila's decision to run for AUC, but once he had said that he was running, he decided to support him. So what happens to Parliament now? We had the majority-minority issue the other day after the court ruled that after the 2022 elections, Azimio was the majority coalition in Parliament. But then now the Speaker rules something different. There was some threats from the Azimio side saying we will not allow this, things will be messy, will be all those things. Lakini watu wakakutana wakazungumza na mambo ni mazuri. So what does that mean for this parliament now going forward? Kama kutakuwa na makubaliano, because all indications are. So nani atakosoa serikali?
That's why it's called a mongrel.
A mongrel.
Nani
You have no
atakosoa?
idea
Oh my God.
what it is.
This reminds
Is it
me.
a Doberman? Is it a German Shepherd? Is it a Spitz? Like, and it could be all of those.
It could be all of those.
Yes,
It reminds me of those members of parliament who seemed shocked when presentations were made about SHA and what's not working. And they're saying, oh, hold on, nani wao ndo walipitisha hizo bills zikawa sheria. So will we have such instances where, because sasa kila mtu atakuwa upande mmoja, there's no one to question anything? Because that's where we're headed.
Maybe that's
what is this democracy that we have? Maybe people say we're still a young democracy and we need to make democracy work for Africans, and we keep aping the West, right? We always say, take a look at what happens, for example, in the US. There are strict ideological differences between the blue and the red, the Republicans and the Democrats. I mean, I don't know that they've ever had a handshake or, you know, whatever it is they call it. But some people say, well, that's their version of democracy and we need our own, that might be a mongrel.
Well, and you ask whether we are a young democracy. We are not a young democracy. We are a democracy that is experiencing stunted growth, where we are showing all signs of poor nutrition in terms of growth, in terms of the growth patterns. And let's prepare for very many mongrels. And even those who said they are not ready for mongrels are now having to actually shape one.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this and saying, what really informs this? What informs this is the fact that our politics and our democracy is haunted by insecurity. Mm-hmm. If you are not in government, there was something that was planted way back in the 60s that made it so insecure for anybody not to be so-called, not to be in government, so to speak. In the 60s, when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta took over, his first assignment was to, first of all, kill multipartyism. And they killed KANU. They killed KADU, that's the Kenya African Democratic Union. And the narrative in the 60s is the same as today. Ni mzuri tuwe kwa serikali.
Yeah. Yes.
What is that? Why should you be, I mean, if you're a democracy, democracy means there'll be somebody who will win the election, but it's not to the exclusion of those others, who does not win the election. But the fact is, Jomo Kenyatta and the independence generation planted the seed, where if you're not in government, you will be treated badly. The first experiment with multipartyism went so badly, and that is in 1960, between 1966 and 1969, when we had KANU and the Kenya People's Union, KPU, that was led by the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Now, those who were in the opposition went through a lot, including the introduction of a clause that if you defect, you have to seek a fresh mandate. Yeah. This was not aimed at KANU, the party that is ruling, but at the people who are disagreeing with KANU and Jomo Kenyatta. And that is where a lot of the pioneer opposition politicians that include Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, include Bildad Kagia. For Bildad Kagia, who came from Kandara in Muranga, Jomo Kenyatta actually went there to campaign against him so that he doesn't win the seat. And it was terrible to be an opposition politician because we didn't understand it. We all thought, I think that was, we all thought at the time, which was planted as a national psyche, that you have to be in government for you to be part of Kenya. So that was planted. And Jaramogi, after 1969, was in the cold until 1980, basically until Jomo Kenyatta died.
Yeah.
And then even his rehabilitation was so difficult because it was conditional.
Sure.
You want to form a party, then you have a problem, you'll go back. And I think he said something in the process of his rehabilitation. He had been appointed chairman of Kenya Cotton Lint.
Yeah,
and he said something about corruption in the Kenyatta era. And he immediately lost that position again and went back. So we need, very long story, we need to do something that makes our democracy secure.
But didn't we then get a 2010 constitution?
We got a 2010 constitution which have
devolution,
been... Yes.
Taking the power and the mandate to the people, and that not all power resided at Harambee House or at State House in Nairobi, so that this trooping to...
Or Mombasa.
Wow. Now we got a new constitution.
Didn't that help?
No, it didn't. It didn't, because our ethnic insecurities remain.
Yeah.
Look at the competition. And I'm always comfortable with this topic just for the simple fact that I'm not in the big five. I'm not born, so
you have no bone to pick with.
So you have nothing on me. I'm a free Maasai, completely. You see the big five, how the mathematics is always about how do we win along ethnic lines. That's what exactly has killed our democracy. But the beauty is, several mongrels down the line, everyone is learning their stories. Even the whole notion of having your own tribesman in office. You see, the last 10 years, for example, actually now we're heading to 15, the Uhuru term and the Ruto term was really constructed around that. That, you know, you first of all keep Central and Rift Valley together, and only that way can you get power. But everyone is realizing that it doesn't work that way. That is why all these mongrels are coming up. Now, let me go to Lake, just in conclusion, the Lake side, because I always describe our system as a rickshaw. Those ones you see in India.
In India.
In India. So you have 3 seats.
Called rickshaw.
No, 2 seats.
Yes. 3,
and 3 contestants. It cannot accommodate the lake, mountain, and the rift and the valley at the same time. If you have the lake and the mountain,
then the rift,
the valley must stay out. If you have the valley and the mountain, the lake yes. And these are the jitters you are seeing now. Because this is exactly what it means. The mindset has not shifted from the 60s. And some of the, I've seen some members of parliament from the Lake region actually, you know, typing it out in their social media posts about marginalization, about, oh, you don't want us in. Ruto becomes bad if the lake is coming in. So that is how it's going to work. So for the rest of the country, sometimes I think you have to wait for the valley, the mountain, and the lake to grow up, to realize there's something futile about these rickshaw games. If there is no quality in the leadership that is coming out of any of those geographical features, there is no way of healing it. Whether you revolve it, chase each other out, and keep exchanging the 2 seats, you'll end up in the same place. Because weren't we here just the other day in the handshake of March 9th, 2018? March 2018, the lake and the mountain got together, and the valley had to take a walk. And now it's the lake
and the lake.
And the valley.
And the valley.
Yes.
So the mountain is uncomfortable. And these 3 regions, I think NCIC doesn't allow us to expound it a bit more than that. So let's use geographical features. There is a lot of political growing up and just developing a sense of security, that being in the opposition is not a death sentence. It's part of how we are supposed to work. And then you compete, and then the other side wins. And actually, I should mention the fact that the problem with our democracy is the other side has never won. We are not like Nigeria or Ghana where you have competing political ideologies that switch places.
Every election.
So we've never had a change. I remember we celebrated, Kenyans were celebrating the 2002 election. That is a big change. What big change? That was the vice president of KANU who had just changed their name and the name of their party. Oh, and there was a change of name of party earlier today.
As well.
Hand back to you.
That deserves a discussion on its own, and more substantively. Now Kenya, rebranded to the People's Liberation Party, headed by Martha Karua. We will give it its due attention in subsequent shows. For today, let's deal with the mongrels and finish with them, and give Martha her